What is up, my friends? Welcome to Flippin Bats. Boy, oh boy, good show for everyone today. Am I finally ready to say my pick about the Atlanta Braves was wrong? We'll talk about the Atlanta Braves. We're going to talk about the Arizona Diamondbacks and what they need to do right now with the way their organization, or at least this year, is heading. Corbin Burns, unfortunately, needs Tommy John in his first year there. What should they do? Because they have a lot that they can do if they choose to do it. The Houston Astros back on top of the AL West because that's where they always are, atop the AL West. We'll talk about them as well. Power rankings. It is Monday, meaning power rankings new and improved and updated. We'll talk all through that. And then at the end, I'll give a couple FanDuel Sportsbook best bets because Flippin' Bats is presented by FanDuel. Bet baseball with us all season long on America's #1 sportsbook. I told you last episode I was off to Coors Field over the weekend. Thursday, there was an event there, charity event for UC Health that I try to go to every year. Had to miss last year, but this year was able to get back, where we were going to raise money for Freedom Service Dogs, which was a really, really cool organization to learn about. Unfortunately, got there, got onto Coors Field. The event was like all getting ready to go, and then a big storm came through, and it did rain out the home run derby part that was supposed to take place on the field where we were going to raise all of the money. Instead, UC Health, fortunately, still donated money to Freedom Service Animals. I got to meet a bunch of the dogs and the veterans that they are paired with and how that whole process works. So still an incredible event. Thanks to UC Health again for having me out every single year. I truly love doing this with them. I still got some hacks in, went in the cage in the visiting locker room, got some swings in off the pitching machine. Got to hold my first torpedo bat. I didn't swing it. I hated it. I hated the look of it. There was one there. I didn't use it. It felt really uncomfortable with my hands, so I didn't use it. And big news, guys. Still got it. Swing's still there. Thanks again to UC Health. Unfortunately, didn't get to hit any homers on the field, but we'll be back next year. What else? Some big news out of Major League Baseball, by the way. And I for years have been saying baseball is on the rise. We are growing the game. That's part of what this show is all about, right? Growing the game. It's a positive show about the game of baseball. I love talking about it all with you guys and growing this sport in whatever way I possibly can together. And continually have said over the years, baseball is growing. On Twitter, I send that same tweet all the time. Baseball with the up chart. Well, guess what? Viewership is way up. And these numbers just came out. And I wanted to share them all with you because, honestly, it's awesome. And this is for all the haters out there that tried to say over really before COVID, baseball's dead. And then around that time, well, guess what? It's been on a straight upwards incline since COVID and the rule changes and all of that. MLB viewership is way up. On ESPN, it's up 22%. On TBS, it's up 16%. The coolest part of that is that in the age 18 to 34 demographic, it's up 69%. That is huge. That age range is huge for the growth of the game of baseball, and we have seen huge numbers in that age range over the last couple of years. Fox is up 10%. NHK in Japan is up 22%. MLB TV viewership is up 27%. This is all the platforms you can watch MLB on are up double-digit numbers. And then attendance this year. If you've been wondering, last year was a 7-year high for Major League Baseball in terms of attendance. This year, it's up even from that, what it was last year. So these numbers are really awesome to see. The why is pretty easy, if you ask me. One, a lot of credit due to Commissioner Manfred for the rule changes. The rule changes have been huge. I often say this younger generation, I don't even know what you call them, Gen Z, Gen X, I don't know. But what I like to say is essentially the TikTok generation. And I don't mean that negatively at all. I love TikTok. I have a big presence on TikTok. I watch it all the time. But when I say that, I mean it's a generation that you have seconds to grab their attention. And if you don't, they're moving on. So the pitch clock, I think, has been the biggest thing for this age range because you're getting so much more action packed into a much more condensed space. And that's what you have to do. And we've seen that pay off big time, I think. Also, we have the greatest player I've ever seen, Shohei Ohtani, playing in the game right now. We have Aaron Judge, who's one of the greatest hitters in history and on a Barry Bonds-esque run currently. So one of the greatest hitters of all time, and Aaron Judge. One of, if not the greatest player of all time, in Shohei Ohtani. It's a perfect storm for baseball to be changing the rules and action-packed time with some of the greatest players we've ever seen and some of the greatest talent. And we're promoting that more and having social media be a big part of it. And it's just all been a culmination to result in these numbers just being on a straight incline upwards. And I love to see it. Baseball is on the rise, viewership is on the rise, attendance is on the rise, talent is on the rise. It's truly an incredible time for Major League Baseball. And to all the haters out there that constantly say baseball's a dying sport, not even close. In fact, it's the complete opposite. So wanted to share those numbers. I thought it was really cool to see that and tweeted it out a few days ago. Wanted to share those with you. Let's talk what is currently happening in the game, as we do every week. We got a couple different teams to talk about this week, a couple different big storylines happening. I want to start with the Atlanta Braves. The Atlanta Braves are my 2025 World Series pick. I'm starting to worry. I was worried last week. I mentioned a worry meter. It was my first time doing it. I think I was at like a 4. In the span of a week, I'm up to a 9. The Atlanta Braves have lost 7 straight games. They're 10 games under 500. They're 14 games back in the NL East. They're 9.5 games back of a wild card spot. And there's only a few teams, the Marlins, the Pirates, and the Rockies, are the only teams worse than the Atlanta Braves in the National League. It's bad. It's really, really bad. So if you're the Braves, how do you move forward? What do you do? There's still time, right? There's plenty of time left in the season, but it's getting late early. In the wise words of Yogi Berra, it's getting late early. And that could not be more true right now. The trade deadline is a little bit over a month away, and you have to be realistic. That's the deal with all of these teams as we get closer and closer to the end of July. You can punt on a season, you can retool for the future, you can add. It's a big decision to be made for an organization. And with a team like the Atlanta Braves that had World Series aspirations this year, you just have to be realistic. And these next few weeks are going to be huge for them. As we sit right now, the Braves are a long shot to make the playoffs. They're plus 250, about plus 250 on FanDuel Sportsbook. When, as we sat last week, they were right around plus 100, right around that. So this 7-game losing streak has been brutal for them. They're 10-23 away from Atlanta. So I don't sit here right now, for the first time all year, I don't sit here and think this is a playoff team. For the first time all year, I think this team, as we currently sit, is not a playoff team. And they're not a team that, as we sit right now, is going to add to it at the trade deadline. So something has to change. And if they don't go on a big stretch in the next couple of weeks, you're going to have to punt on this season. Because guess what? The reason I picked this team to win is because Ronald Acuna Jr. was going to come back and Spencer Strider was going to come back. And then you pair that with the Austin Rileys and the Matt Olson and the Michael Harris II and, at Ozzie Albies. Everywhere you look, there's talent. And then you pair that with a Chris Sale in the rotation. I had big aspirations for this team, and it has been miserable. You never really replaced Max Fried. You just said, man, we took a flyer on Chris Sale, and he turned into the best pitcher in the National League. Well, that's not really a way to go about it. And then you're thinking, okay, we'll get Spencer Strider back. Sure, I understand that. But at this point, you're relying on an aging pitcher to be, again, the best pitcher in the National League, and then a pitcher with his second elbow surgery to come back and be as good as he was before. All of that seems a bit unrealistic. You did kind of catch a tough break when you signed Jurickson Profar as an offseason move that I really like, and then he got popped for steroids. But I think you just have to be realistic. And I call me an idiot, call me dumb. I am not, as we sit on this show today, maybe it'll change next week. I'm not yet ready to say I am completely done with this Braves team. And maybe that's wrong. I do think it's still a month and a half until the trade deadline. They need to go on a run. I think this team is capable of that. But if they don't, how do you move forward? Because your core is wrapped up for this team. You have everybody signed long term. You have Acuna signed long term on the best team friendly deal you can ever get. Ozzy Albies is on a long term deal. Austin Riley, Matt Olson, Sean Murphy behind the plate, Michael Harris II in the outfield. Like, you believed in this core and you went for it and you wrapped them up. And I respect that. But the problem is if they all start underperforming and the team doesn't learn how to win together, you can be in a tricky position. And now, I talked about it last week, in the last 200 games, the Braves are 100 and 100. Well, guess what? 1 week later, in the last 207 games, the Atlanta Braves are 100 and 107. They are under a 500 team. So, I do believe in this young core that they've built and wrapped up long term, but it's not working. So, what do you do? How do you move forward with this current team? There's an obvious one. If you decide to be sellers, that does not but so much you can do. But Marcell Ozuna is a free agent after this year. There's plenty of interest in him. He's not having the year he did last year, but he will garner plenty of attention. The guy can rake, and will be an improvement for a team. There's a lot of teams that could use him and need him and will trade for him and will give you some good pieces for him. Another one for me that we really need to keep an eye on is Chris Sale. Look, Chris Sale was open and honest. Before last year, he was going to retire. He was ready to retire. And then the Atlanta Braves come along and give him a multi-year deal and believe in him. And he decided to pitch and ended up winning his first Cy Young Award and winning the Triple Crown in the National League and really having a resurgence. But he's close to retirement. He wasn't ready to retire. And now he's not a free agent after this year, but there's a club option. There is an option after this year. I believe it's a club option. So there's a club option after this year for him. Do you bring him back next year and then have him close to retirement after that? Or do you say, okay, let's be realistic here. Our rotation isn't good enough. AJ Smith-Shawver goes down. He needs TJ. That's a huge blow to us in our rotation. Spencer Strider is back from his second elbow surgery, and he's not the same. Spencer Strider is going to have to take the rest of this year to learn how to pitch differently than he ever has in his entire life. Spencer Strider was throwing 99, 100 miles an hour. He's not that guy anymore. Look, the velo can still come back, but the odds and the analytics say after two elbow surgeries, your first 4 or 5 starts back show you a lot. And right now he's sitting 95. And let me say this, sitting 95 miles an hour as a starting pitcher plays. But right now it's not for Spencer Strider because he's never done that. Not never, but in the big leagues. Obviously, he didn't throw 95 his whole life, but he was throwing harder than everybody else at every level he's ever been at. Now, he's a little bit back closer to the playing field. 95, sitting 95 as a starting pitcher in Major League Baseball plays. But he has to learn to pitch differently. You're not blowing 95 by everybody. You can't get by throwing 95 down the middle. It's going to get hit. I think Spencer Strider's a good pitcher with good stuff, but it's not the same stuff, and he's going to have to learn to pitch differently. And now, I think this season, you're going to have to keep throwing him back out there, and he's going to have to learn to pitch differently. So this year, where I was really excited to get Strider back and pair him with Chris Sale, It's not the same Spencer Strider, and that's okay. He's just going to have to learn to pitch differently. And then you lose AJ Smith-Shawver. This rotation isn't good enough. This bullpen isn't good enough as it currently sits. So this team isn't currently a playoff team. So do you add to that? We've heard rumblings, especially before this 7-game stretch, that they're going to add. Well, do you really do that now? You're 9.5 games back of a wild card spot with a bunch of teams to pass. Do you really add? And if you don't, you're not good enough to be a playoff team with this current rotation and bullpen. The offense, I think, can turn around. The offense is good enough on paper as we speak to be a playoff team. The rotation right now isn't. No Max Fried in the rotation. Spencer Strider's having to learn to pitch differently. Chris Sale's not the same Chris Sale he was last year. AJ Smith-Shawver goes down and is done for the year and much of next year. So if you don't go on a stretch in this next month, you're going to have to punt on the season and retool for next year. It's not going to be a punt on this current organization and the blueprint of winning for this team. It's going to be a punt on this year and say, look, tough year. Look, the vibes started poorly when Ronald didn't start the year on time and Spencer Strider didn't start the year on time. And we were just kind of waiting for them, but we couldn't have gotten off to a worse start. And then when they did come back, it never really clicked. We just never got going this year. Let's trade Ozuna, get something back for him. Let's maybe trade Chris Sale and get a ton back for him. And then I think the offseason question becomes like, we need a bit of a change. And maybe that doesn't come on the field. Maybe it comes from acquiring a player, and then you're going to get Profar back for a full season when he's not suspended. What does that look like? But what I'm saying is, again, I never call for jobs. I don't want to do that. I don't like seeing people lose their jobs, but I think there needs to be a serious discussion about Brian Snitker as manager of the Atlanta Braves. I think their hitting coach, there needs to be a discussion there. I think there just needs to be a bit of retooling in that organization because the talent is off the charts. The ceiling for the Braves is off the charts, but they're consistently underperforming with really good talent. And to me, when you look at, well, why is that the case? You have to look at a couple things. Are the players as good as we think? And I think that answer is yes. Sue me. I think Ronald Acuna Jr. is an MVP. I think Matt Olson is certainly a top 5 first baseman in the game of baseball. I think Ozzie Albies is a stud of a player. I think Austin Riley is a stud of a player. I think Michael Harris II is going to be a stud, but needs a little bit of guidance and maybe a different hitting coach. So when you have the talent and the team's just not clicking, there's a couple different things you have to look at. One, is the talent not as good as we think? And I don't think that's the case. I do believe in the talent. I do believe Ronald Acuna Jr. is an MVP type of player still. I do believe in Ozzie Albies. I do believe in Austin Riley. I do think Matt Olson's a top 3 to 5 first baseman in the game of baseball. I do believe in Sean Murphy. I do think Michael Harris II is a stud, but I think he just needs a little guidance as a young player. Maybe a different hitting coach would be big. So I do believe in that talent. So then the other question becomes, well, why aren't they clicking? Why isn't it working? And that becomes a different conversation. I think when you say, why isn't it clicking? That's a conversation of a manager. When you say, why isn't the talent producing as we think it might? I think then there's a discussion of the hitting coaches and the analytics guys within the organization and just who you're surrounding these players with. So I think if you decide to retool, which again, if it doesn't change in the next month, I think you have to retool. I'm not yet ready to say that, but I can acknowledge over the next 30 games, I think they need to go 20-10 or else they need to retool. What does that look like? You're limited on options, but there are some good options. Marcell Ozuna, trade him. Perhaps Chris Sale, get a ton in return. And then in the offseason, some big changes. Maybe before the offseason. Again, I don't want to call for jobs. I don't do that. But I do think it's time to look in the mirror at Brian Snitker and just say, this team isn't really clicking for you. And I do think the hitting coach as well needs to be a discussion. So we're not far away from the Atlanta Braves needing to retool for next year and me saying, officially, I'm very close to saying it, but I'm not yet officially ready to say it, that I was wrong about the Atlanta Braves. But as we currently sit, my worry meter's a 9 out of 10, and they just have not gotten going. They also have just pissed me off over the last week with the way they handle Craig Kimbrell. Look, Craig Kimbrell is a franchise legend, and he's been down in the. They signed him. They put him down in the minors. He rehabbed down there. He kind of ramped up and got ready. Look, he got cut. He got cut over the weekend after one outing, and that's not what pisses me off. Craig Kimbrell's a franchise legend. But look, the guy doesn't have it anymore, right? He's throwing 91, 92, 93 down in the minor leagues. The guy doesn't have it anymore. But what frustrates me the most is you have this guy sit down in the minor leagues for months. We're talking about a closer that's Hall of Fame conversation, right? Closers don't get in the Hall of Fame. There's a handful of them. Craig Kimbrell's within that conversation because of what he did with the Braves. So you have this guy that's a legend sitting down in the minors for months, having him rehab and try to build back up. And then you call him up because you need an arm, and then you cut him after one outing? If you thought he didn't have it, if you were prepared to cut him, why bring him up just to eat an inning and then cut him while the team is on the road? This isn't some career 4A pitcher that's up and down and interchangeable. This is a franchise legend. And I think they handled this situation miserably. If you know the analytics were bad, if you know the guy's sitting 91 to 93, and that doesn't play as a reliever in the big leagues when your stuff is erratic and he's walking a bunch of guys and he's been sort of the same pitcher he has been for the last few years with the velocity dropped. If you know he doesn't have it, don't bring him up just to eat an inning in the big leagues on the road and then cut him. If you want to bring him up, do it at home. Let the organization celebrate him. They would have loved it. The crowd would have gone wild. Atlanta loves Craig Kimbrell. And the way they handled it is similar to the way they've handled everything this year. Just everything has been bad for the Atlanta Braves this year and their handling of Craig Kimbrell. I just wanted to mention because I think they did it miserably. Celebrate him. Bring him up. Have him throw once. Let the crowd go wild and enjoy seeing him one final time on the mound in Atlanta. But no, you bring him up to eat an inning on the road and then cut him? Disgraceful, honestly. I thought it was handled miserably. So things not good in Atlanta for the Braves this year. Things are good in Houston for the Astros this year. I try to tell y'all every single year about the Houston Astros. Every year I pick the Astros to win the division, and every year I get crap. And every year they do win the division. 7 straight division titles in a full season, the shortened season aside. 7 straight full season division titles. And now they've won 11 of their last 15 games. They're back on top of the AL West, 2.5 games up in the AL West. And every year I pick them. And it's a different sort of response every year, but it's always negative outside of Houston. Oh, your brother's on the team. You're always picking the Astros. Now you're such a homer. Oh, my God. And now it's, how can you pick the Astros? The Rangers are so much better. Rangers fans, I got news for you. Your team stinks. That's why I didn't pick them. I said it all the time at the beginning of the year. I think the Rangers' ceiling is higher, is the highest in the AL West. But I think their floor is the second lowest aside from the Athletics. And I believed that would more be the case with underperformance and injuries, and that is what we're seeing. They're 31 and 35. The Texas Rangers stink. Yet I say that at the beginning of the year and say their ceiling is not near as high. Their ceiling is high, sure, but they're going to underperform that. And their floor is way lower than the Astros. And now it's just like, oh, how can you say that? Now there's nothing left to say. I'm not saying it because my brother's on the team. I'm saying it because I believe in it. The Astros know how to win. The Rangers, the Mariners, these other teams in the division don't. And I know the Rangers won a World Series a couple years ago, but since then, they stink. So it's more of, I truly believe winning is a culture. I really believe that. Some teams know how to win, and other teams are trying to learn how to win. And I think the Astros as an organization know how to win. The leaders in that clubhouse still know how to win. Jose Altuve knows how to win. He knows how to be a leader. Yordan Alvarez knows how to win and how to be a leader. Jeremy Pena came up at a good time to know how to win and be a leader. So sure, you're mixing and matching, and it might look a little bit different. And Isaac Paredes might be your third baseman now instead of Alex Bregman, but he's been really good. So some teams know how to win, and the Astros, in my opinion, some teams know how to win, and the Astros are the only team in the AL West that knows how to win. The Mariners were in first place a couple weeks ago, and I truly believed it was different this year. I really did. I stood up for them for when most people weren't and said, hold up, everyone, pump the brakes. This Mariners team is legit. I believe in the Mariners. And really, ever since then, they just haven't proven to be legit. The Mariners of everybody don't know how to win. The Mariners have never won. And then you pair that with a talented team on the field, but a front office that just refuses to add the offense it needs. But the reason I said I believed in them is because I think Julio Rodriguez is a stud. I think there was a lot of underperformance last year that could improve this year, and it was with Jorge Polanco. Cal Raleigh is the best catcher in baseball. He's got 25 pumps behind the dish. The dude should be the starting catcher for the American League in the All-Star game. But it just hasn't worked out yet. And now you're losers of 7 of your last 10 games. And that's with those last 10 being against a lighter schedule. You had 4 straight series against the Baltimore Orioles, Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim, Minnesota Twins, and Washington Nationals. 3 bad teams. And you went 4-8 in that stretch. You got swept by the Baltimore Orioles, who are terrible this year. So, I mean, I'm not yet ready to be like, yep, I knew it. Mariners aren't good. I was wrong. The Mariners, I think, can be a playoff team, but I don't think they're as good as the Houston Astros. The Astros are inevitable in the AL West. It's just the truth of the matter. Until someone knocks the Astros off, it will always be the Astros. Why is it so hard for people to get this through their head? The Astros are inevitable. You might hate them. You might not like them. You might not root for them. You might come up with excuses for them. You might bring up something that happened a decade ago, but it's time to face it. The Astros are better than everybody else in that division. The Rangers stink. The Mariners never add offense when they need to. The Athletics stink. The Angels stink. It's the Astros in the AL West. It has always been the Astros for the last decade, and that's not changing right now. Now they're on a roll. I still don't even think they're really clicking on all cylinders. The team just looks different, and that's okay. I think they really did a good job, and I was critical. I was critical of the trade. I was critical of the Kyle Tucker trade, while also understanding how Jim Crane works, where he doesn't shell out these 7, 6, 7, 10-year deals for $300 million. He doesn't. And he decided to retool. The front office decided to retool. Really good pickup of Isaac Paredes. I liked that a lot. The dude just yanks the ball down the line, plays a good defense, and gets on base. So he's been really good for the Astros. You get Cam Smith out of it, who's been a serviceable big leaguer so far as a really, really young guy. So I think they're going to retool this team at the trade deadline. I think you're going to get a. I think they're going to go after a pitcher at the trade deadline, and they're going to be off and running, and probably win the division, and then get into the playoffs, and we'll see what happens. But the Astros are still inevitable in the AL West, and yeah, the rest of the division just isn't cutting it right now. The Rangers are 31 and 35. You did get Jacob deGrom. He comes back this year. He's been good. Well, it's like this team just doesn't know how to win. Like they have talent, right? Marcus Semion's a stud. He has been miserable until the last week of the season. Corey Seager's been injured. Adolis Garcia is like Babe Ruth in the playoffs, but during the regular season, it's underperformance and injuries. And uh, when the lights aren't the brightest, Adolis Garcia is not a top player in the league. When they are, he is. But for 162 games, the lights aren't always going to be the brightest. Jacob deGrom's been fantastic, yet the team's still 31 and 35. It's just the Rangers stink. The Mariners, I think, can be a good team, but it's time to add at the deadline. Go get Marcell Ozuna from the Braves. Like, do something. Do anything on the offensive side. But the Astros are back on top of the AL West. 2.5 games up on the Mariners now, and right back where they've been for the last 8 years, which is on top of that division. On the contrast of things, let's talk about the Arizona Diamondbacks. The Arizona Diamondbacks are 31 and 34. Big time aspirations for them. I would say World Series aspirations for the Diamondbacks at the beginning of the year. After being there a couple years ago and then going to add Corbin Burnes, certainly a playoff team. But right now, if you're the Arizona Diamondbacks, you have to be realistic. If you're the Diamondbacks, you have to be realistic. There's a long way to go, plenty of time left in the season. But if this doesn't change in the next couple of weeks, it should be a full-on fire sale for the Arizona Diamondbacks. Corbin Burnes, out for the year, out for half of next year. Unfortunately, needs Tommy John. He came out of the game the other day and he said, my elbow, it's done. And then we heard like maybe there's some cautious optimism. No, done. Needs TJ, out for the rest of this year and half of next year at least. Just awful, awful news. First year of a $210 million contract. Corbin Burnes done for the year. So he's out for the year. Your stud of a pitcher. You have a couple, but one of your studs in Corbin Burnes is out for the year. You're now 6 games back of a wild card spot. There's only 5 teams worse than you in the National League. So I'll say it again. There is a long way to go. But if you don't really turn things around in the next couple of weeks, there needs to be a full-on fire sale for the Arizona Diamondbacks. They have an incredible chance to retool for the future, I think. Look, and this isn't like punting on a year isn't the end-all be-all. Look, it was unfortunate. Your best pitcher, your ace, your stud, out for the year, Tommy John. There's been a bit of underperformance as well. So instead of like saying, okay, let's just maybe from August on, we'll really go on a crazy stretch and just say, no, what we built around didn't really work this year. Let's retool. And the reason I say this with the Arizona Diamondbacks is because the possibilities of what they could get and how they can retool for the future is huge. Listen to these names that are free agents after this year. Zach Gallen, free agent. Jalen Beeks, Merrill Kelly, Josh Naylor, Eugenio Suarez. Between Gallen, Kelly, Naylor, Suarez, you could get a ton for those guys. Randall Grichuk is another name that has a mutual option that could really garner some attention for a team that needs a bat against left-handed pitching. You could really retool. And I'm not saying get rid of all those guys, but they're all possibilities and all names that you could get something big for. Zach Gallen could get you a huge return. Zach Gallen this year is a better pitcher than he's been this year. Zach Gallen has given up more home runs this year already than he gave up all of last season. So maybe a change of scenery would be great for him. I mentioned him when we talked about the Cubs last week. The Cubs, really good team, in desperate need of a starting pitcher. Zach Gallen to me kind of just feels like a Cub. Feels like a good fit. Maybe they go after him. But all of these names you could get so much for. So it's not saying like everything we built over the last few years is done and out the window. No. Corbin Burns, I like Corbin Burns. He's just out for a little while. He's going to be out for a year. But that's your ace. You know, you have Corbin Carroll wrapped up long term. You have Perdomo as a shortstop that I think is a stud. You have Montero behind the plate. Behind the plate. I think he's a stud. You have these pieces, and you have this core of like, okay, who do we want to build around? Corbin Burns, Corbin Carroll, Perdomo, like studs. And then how do you handle it from there? Well, that's kind of up to you, but you have a good starting point. Do you want to keep one of these guys or two of these guys or three of these guys between Zach Gallen, Merrill Kelly, Josh Naylor, Eugenio Suarez? Sure, maybe. Maybe the answer is not to trade all of them, but think of what you could get in the short term for them. Right now, come the trade deadline, you're a team as we sit that's 6 games back of even a wild card spot with a ton of teams to jump, with a ton of names coming up on free agency. That's why I think you just have to be realistic. These are the tough decisions an organization has to make to really turn things around. And it's what the Astros have done so well over the last decade of drafting well, building around that, and really not spending on that $300+ million contract. They've just looked in the mirror when the time is right, and the time was right with Kyle Tucker over the last offseason, and said, look, we're gonna retool. And that's what I think the Diamondbacks need to do. I think they can be good. I think they just need to take advantage of this. Look, and they can go on a run over the next month. And so you still have time to make that decision. I don't see it this year with the Diamondbacks. And I think you have an incredible opportunity, better than everyone else, with these names available at free agency to really retool for next year and beyond. Again, Zach Gallen, stud of a pitcher. Merrill Kelly, very serviceable arm for a rotation. Josh Naylor, stud of a first baseman, super clutch, a lot of pop. Eugenio Suarez, some of the most pop in the league. So how do you handle this trade deadline? I think is going to be huge. And if you are the Diamondbacks, you just have to be realistic. The key to being a good organization long term isn't having an ego about it and saying, no, we spent all the money, maybe it'll turn around. It's no, we did spend a lot of money. And that doesn't mean we were wrong to do that. It just means it didn't work this year. Let's punt on the rest of the year, get a ton back for these guys, and then next year start over and go from there. That's what I think needs to happen. Also, a bit of a look in the mirror at your ability to target pitching. Let's just look back at some names over the past few years. In recent history, the very recent history is Corbin Burns. There was a great pickup for them, but he did go on to get hurt. Tommy John in his first year. Jordan Montgomery, terrible for them. Then got hurt. 6.23 ERA in his career for the Diamondbacks. His career ERA there, 6.23. Was in the rotation, a huge pickup for them after the World Series, and then just really bad. Moved to the bullpen, now injured, arm injury. Eduardo Rodriguez, another big pickup for them. Hurt in his first year, then comes back this year. He has a 6.7 ERA, then gets hurt again, and now he's back. Not good there. Madison Bumgarner, obviously a bit further back. A 5.23 career ERA for the Arizona Diamondbacks. So, what are we doing with... And I can't sit here from the outside and say, all these are terrible, or they shouldn't have done any of these. That's obviously not the case. They're going for it, and I respect that and I appreciate that. But like the guys we're targeting consistently underperforming or getting hurt, there's organizations that are the complete opposite, right? So what's the difference with those? The New York Mets right now are just like a pitching factory for just rejuvenating guys' careers. Sean Manaea goes to the Mets and changes everything. I do know there's an injury there, but like other different names, different organizations. It's like you go there and things just turn around. Well, for the Diamondbacks, it's sort of the opposite. You go there, you underperform, and there's injuries that are creeping up. You can't control injuries, but like what's happening with the guys we're targeting and how is it happening is just something you need to look in the mirror at. Maybe there's need for change there. Brent Strom, I love as pitching coach. I love the addition for them of Brent Strom a few years ago, but like who else? Who else in terms of like doing your checkups on guys and like checking on their health and pitching analytics department within the organization? It's just off there. I don't have the answers, but I can point back to their last huge pickups and just say Corbin Burns, Jordan Montgomery, Eduardo Rodriguez, Madison Bumgarner, bad for different reasons, underperformance and injury, both for some of those guys. So a look in the mirror. I think a punt on this year is what needs to happen if we're being realistic. Punt on this year. There's a ton of names coming up on free agency. Retool for the future and look internally at your pitching situation and the analytics department there and pitching coaches and, development guys, all of that. I think take a look at all of that if you're the Arizona Diamondbacks, but just be realistic. They had an opportunity before the last week or so, and I think the last week is what pushes them over the edge. You had a homestand against the Pittsburgh Pirates and the Washington Nationals, and then a road trip where you start against the Cincinnati Reds. You went 2-4 on that homestand against the Pirates and the Nationals, and then you got swept against the Reds. Bad. And I think that's where it all turned around. So look in the mirror, look at those names, think of those names. Zach Gallen, Merrill Kelly, Josh Naylor, Eugenio Suarez, all could make a contending team really, really happy this year. So I think you go and get a lot in return for those guys, in my opinion. So we'll see what the Arizona Diamondbacks are going to do. But I first mentioned them last week when I was talking about the Cubs as my team that most needs to do something. Chicago Cubs, a sleeper team to keep an eye on, is the Arizona Diamondbacks, and that has turned out to even more so be the case at this point. I don't think it's a sleeper. I think at this point, it's more likely than not that the Diamondbacks are going to be sellers at the trade deadline, and they have the most exciting names of anyone to sell. So we'll see what happens there. It's Monday. Let's talk power rankings 10 through 1 as we do every single Monday. We'll talk through some of the controversial ones quickly, but let's start at number 10 this week. It always comes out on social media early in the day on Monday. Big conversation comes from there. Let's start at number 10. The Toronto Blue Jays, I'm keeping them here where they were last week. 35-30. They're winners of 8 of their last 10, playing good baseball. So keeping the Blue Jays put where they are at number 10. At number 9, 38-28. Really good record, but they are new back to the power rankings, and that is the San Francisco Giants. They've won 5 in a row, so I get them back in the top 10. I did drop them out, even with obviously a top 10 record in the game of baseball. It just wasn't good for the Giants for a while. That offense needs help. They're one of these teams that I think could really use help. A Josh Naylor type at first base. They need first base help. Lamont Wade just getting DFA'd from the team. You need help at first base. Maybe Josh Naylor's a good pickup for them. But regardless, they're playing good baseball. 5 wins in a row. They're back in the top 10 at number 9. At number 8, the biggest dropper of the week, the Philadelphia Phillies. Still a good record. Still sitting pretty. They're 37-28, but they've lost 5 in a row, and they've lost 9 of their last 10, including a sweep by the Pittsburgh Pirates. Brutal for the Philadelphia Phillies. Brutal stretch right now. So I dropped them the biggest down to number 8. At number 7, up 1 spot, is the Houston Astros that we did talk about for a good while. They're 36-29. They're 2.5 games up now in the AL West. Astros are inevitable in that division until somebody knocks them off. At number 6, I'm going to go the Yankees. down one spot from where they were last week. They're 39-25. They do have the second best record in the American League, but they just lost that series to the Boston Red Sox, and it just left a bad taste in my mouth. The Red Sox aren't good. Surprisingly, not good. And you lose that series to them at home, bad. Dropped them a spot to number 6. At number 5, up one spot. So flipping these two is the San Diego Padres. They're 37-27. They did split with San Francisco this week in a 4-game set. Started off really good and then lost the last couple games. So split there, but then they won a series against a good Milwaukee Brewers team. So I did bump them up one ahead of the Yankees. Just different weekends, opposite weekends for the Yankees and Padres. So I flipped them. At number 4, down one spot. They're 40-25, but the Chicago Cubs, still a very good team, one of just a couple teams in the league that has reached the 40-win mark. But they lost the series to Detroit over the weekend. Huge series. Cubs, very close. Chicago, close to Detroit. Fun little rivalry there. Two really good teams this year. The second highest attended 3-game series in Detroit since 2015. Really fun. All sellouts there. Really fun series. Tigers take it. But I did bump the Cubs down just one spot because the Tigers are very good. Best team in the American League for sure. Bump them down a spot to number 4. At number 3, down one spot. I'm going to go to the Los Angeles Dodgers. They're 39-27, down one spot from number 2. They lost to the St. Louis Cardinals over the weekend. They split with the Mets before that. So the loss to the Cardinals is tough. So I did bump them down one spot. Up 4 spots to number 2. The New York Mets. Best record in the National League. They did split on the road with the Los Angeles Dodgers, which you will take that. You go on the road to play in LA, a very good team. You split that series, and then you get to go to Colorado, where you have to sweep the series. The Rockies are the worst team of all time. They did sweep against the Marlins before this, but still the worst team of all time. They did sweep that series. They looked really good. They took care of business. You have a road trip against the Dodgers and the Rockies, and a good, or at least a week against those teams, and it was a really good week for them, I think. So they're up 4 spots, the biggest riser to number 2. And at number 1, staying put at 43-24, the best record in the game of baseball, the best team in the game of baseball, the Detroit Tigers. Rolling right now. Big weekend series against the Cubs. Fun series. Packed house in Detroit. Loved to see it. And they took care of business, beating a really good team with a really good crowd. And things are rolling in Detroit. The best team in baseball still this week is the Detroit Tigers. So Blue Jays at 10. Giants, Phillies, Astros, Yankees, Padres, Cubs, Dodgers, Mets, Tigers. Those are your power rankings for this week. Before we wrap up, let's do a couple FanDuel Sportsbook picks. We'll give a couple for today, even though this episode comes out a little bit later. So if you're not listening early, maybe you'll miss the Monday picks, but we're just gonna give them for fun. There's a later in the night pick as well. But we'll give a couple for Monday, and then of course a Dinger Tuesday pick for Tuesday for everyone to get on board with. But my Monday picks are going to be Mariners over the Dbacks, which right now is about plus 140 on FanDuel, so you can get some plus money there. I'm going to go Boston and Tampa under 8.5 runs scored, and Freddie Freeman against the Padres, another late night game, rakes against Nick Pivetta. So I will go Freddie Freeman 2+ total bases in that game. Fun series starting there in San Diego for Padres Dodgers. Those are my Monday picks. Tuesday on FanDuel Sportsbook is Dinger Tuesday. We've had a pretty good run here on Dinger Tuesday with the pick that I give out. I'm going to go, last time this worked, I'm going to do it again. Shohei Ohtani on Tuesday to homer. Good numbers against Dylan Cease. Couple of homers and OPS over 1,000. So I'm going to go Shohei Ohtani there. Again, it's Dinger Tuesday on FanDuel Sportsbook. 50% profit boost on any player of your choosing to hit a home run. So check that out. So those are some Monday and Tuesday picks. Again, remember, must be 21 and older and present in select states, or 18 and older and present in D.C. Opt-in required. Bonus is issued as a non-withdrawable profit boost token. Restrictions apply, including any token expiration and max wager amount. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit rg-help.com. FlippinBats.com. Fun show today. A lot going on, a lot happening. The next month in baseball, man, is going to be huge. There are so many teams in it still, and a couple teams out of it that wanted to be in it that aren't going to give up as easily as we think. So the next month plus is one of the most interesting times in baseball all season long. Obviously, September, the lead up to playoffs, probably takes the cake. But the month and a half before the trade deadline that we are entering is going to be so crucial for this season. So I am pumped. The trade deadline talk will start to ramp up here on Flippin' Bats. John Smoltz joins us every single week. He will be on the show in a couple of days, so stay tuned for that. Please make sure you're subscribed, following wherever you listen to your podcast, Apple, Spotify, wherever. Hit that subscribe or follow button and leave a 5-star review if you want. It does really help. Our YouTube channel, check it out. We are getting closer and closer to 56,000 YouTube subscribers. YouTube is ramping up. I love watching on there with you guys and talking in the comments. So if you don't, or if you never have, check out our YouTube channel, Flippin' Bats Pod. Watch the episode there. Leave a comment. I love hopping in the comments and talking back to you guys, but the YouTube watch is really fun. And we're on all social media, at Flippin' Bats Pod everywhere. So check that out. Really appreciate you all. The season is rolling. 2025 is the year of Flippin' Bats. Things are awesome this year, and things have been a lot of fun. So to all of you that listen every single week, thank you. To all of you that are listening for the first time, thank you. Hope to have you back for every episode going forward. It truly means a ton to me. Baseball means a ton. Viewership is skyrocketing. Attendance is on the rise. Baseball is thriving right now. And this show means the world to me. So thank you all. Love you all. Until John Smoltz joins in a couple of days, enjoy the games. And remember, find your bat and flip it. Peace. Flippin' Bats is presented by FanDuel Sportsbook. Must be 21 and older and present in select states. For Kansas, an affiliation with Kansas Star Casino, or 18 and older and present in D.C. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit rg-help.com. Call 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut. Or visit mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts. Or call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York.